A wise enemy is dangerous, but a fool who thinks they're wise. That's their own downfall. They never saw this coming, chosen ones. They were too busy weaving lies, setting traps, thinking they were 2 steps ahead, never realizing you had already seen through every move before they even made it. They thought they were playing a game of control, but the real game, it was never theirs to win. And now, the moment of truth has arrived. The moment when their illusion shatters and they see you standing there, unmoved, unfazed, and aware of everything they've tried to hide. The power of being chosen isn't just about what you know, it's about what they fear. Your presence alone disrupts their illusions. Your silence forces them to second-guess their own schemes. They built their entire game around deception, manipulation, and control, thinking they had you trapped. But the truth? The truth is a force they never accounted for. And now, it's staring them in the face, forcing them to acknowledge a reality they tried so hard to ignore. They wanted to believe they were untouchable, that they could outmaneuver you with tricks and mind games. But the ones who rely on deception are always the weakest, because the moment their lies stop working, they have nothing left. And now they stand exposed, scrambling to cover up their miscalculations. The smirks they once wore, gone. The fake confidence, shattered. The power they thought they had over you, never existed. You are not just another piece on their board, you are the board itself. While they were busy playing checkers, you had already mastered the game they didn't even know they were in. And that's what haunts them the most. The realization that their every move was predictable, that their every secret was never really hidden, that the control they thought they had was nothing more than a fragile illusion. So, let them feel the weight of their own foolishness. Let them wrestle with the paranoia of knowing you've seen through it all. Let them question every interaction, every word, every moment. Because now, they don't just fear exposure, they fear you. And to you, the one who sees through the illusions, the one they underestimated, your presence here is no accident. Whether you just found this space or you've been standing strong with us, know this: your awareness is your power, and they fear it. If you're ready to embrace what sets you apart, to own the truth that shakes them to their core, then tap that like button, hit subscribe, and drop a 77 in the comments. Let them wonder. Let them feel the weight of knowing you were always ahead. And now, let's break it all down, step by step. Because if you are truly one of the chosen, you won't just listen. You'll feel the pull to stay till the very end. Let's begin. Number 1. The illusion of control was theirs. The reality was always yours. Let a fool believe they are winning, and they will dig their own grave with confidence. They strutted around like they owned the board, convinced they had you cornered. Every move they made, they thought it was their own, never realizing you had already mapped out their every step long before they even considered their first. You gave them nothing but silence, a nod, maybe even a smirk, letting them bask in their illusion of control. And they fell for it. Every time. What makes this so satisfying, chosen one, is that they never even considered that you were watching, waiting, knowing all along. They were actors in a play they didn't realize was scripted by you. Their arrogance made them blind. They thought they were playing chess, but in reality, they were stumbling through a maze you built, following a path you designed, leading straight to their own downfall. And now, the truth has hit them like a freight train. The realization stings because they weren't just outplayed, they were never playing to begin with. They thought they had the upper hand, but now they see it for what it was. A leash you let them hold, only to watch them tie themselves in knots. Why did you let them think they were winning? Because nothing exposes a person's weakness more than false confidence. When someone believes they're untouchable, they get sloppy. They reveal everything: how they think, how they move, what they fear. And you were paying attention. They wanted to manipulate you, control you, pull you into their game. But you refused to play by their rules. Every insult, every little power move, every fake smile, they threw it all at you, convinced it was working. Meanwhile, you stood there, unaffected, watching them trip over their own delusions. Now, they're reeling. The smug grins have faded. The satisfaction they once felt now feels like sand slipping through their fingers. They are left questioning, how much did you know? When did you figure it out? And the answer? Always. Their greatest mistake was assuming you were oblivious. They thought you were reacting, but you were always calculating. They thought you were playing along, but you were simply waiting. And now, as they sit in the wreckage of their so-called strategies, they have to face the truth. They were never in control. They just didn't know it yet. Number 2, they thought they were moving in shadows, but you saw through every step. A liar's greatest weakness isn't their lie. It's the cracks they leave behind. They moved as if they were untouchable, whispering in corners, exchanging glances, weaving their web of deception with the confidence of someone who truly believed they were out of sight. They mistook their own arrogance for skill, thinking their little tricks and carefully placed words were enough to keep you in the dark. But they never realized you were watching the entire time. They thought they were slick, that their gestures, their carefully rehearsed smiles, their sudden silences went unnoticed. But deception always leaves fingerprints: a nervous twitch, a forced laugh, a shift in their voice at the wrong moment. The way they tried to act too normal, too casual, as if they weren't hiding something. They underestimated your ability to read between the lines, to catch the details they thought were invisible. And now, the walls are closing in. The false sense of security they once had is gone. The moment they realized you were onto them from the very beginning, the panic set in. Now they're scrambling, trying to figure out how much you know, trying to retrace their own steps, looking for the moment they slipped. But it doesn't matter. They slipped from the start. They made it too easy, too predictable, too obvious. While they thought they were leading the game, they were actually leaving a trail for you to follow. Their confidence blinded them, and you simply waited. You let them believe their game was flawless, let them walk deeper into their own illusion, until reality hit them like a brick wall. Now, the paranoia sets in. They look at you differently. They hesitate before speaking. They replay every conversation, wondering what they gave away, how much you saw, how much you understood. And the worst part, they can't undo it. Because the moment someone realizes they were never in control is the moment they lose everything. Let them feel it, chosen one. Let them wrestle with their own foolishness. Because in the end, their biggest mistake wasn't the lies they told. It was thinking they could ever keep the truth from you. Number 3, you identified their weaknesses, while keeping yours invisible. A predator that doesn't know it's being watched is already prey. They thought they were studying you, analyzing your every move, waiting for a crack to appear. They wanted to find your weakness, something, anything they could use to get under your skin, to control the narrative, to make you second-guess yourself. But here's what they never realized. You were never the one under the microscope. They were. While they schemed, you observed. While they tested your patience, you measured their patterns. Every insult, every calculated silence, every forced display of confidence, they thought they were gaining ground. But all they were doing was revealing more of themselves to you. The irony? They assumed you were blind to their games, but it was their own blindness that cost them. You knew their every weakness before they even knew they had them. Their insecurities weren't hidden. You saw them in the way they needed to be in control, in the way they projected their fears onto others, in the way they tried to mask uncertainty with arrogance. They weren't studying you. They were exposing themselves piece by piece without even realizing it. And now it's sinking in. They feel naked, vulnerable, powerless. The realization that you've known all along, that you were never fooled, is eating them alive. They spent so much time trying to manipulate you, so much effort crafting a false sense of superiority, only to discover they were the ones who had been read like an open book. They wanted to break you, but instead they cracked. They wanted to control you, but now they're the ones spiraling, wondering how much you saw, how deep your awareness truly runs. And the worst part, they will never truly know, because while they wasted their energy trying to dismantle you, you remained untouchable, calm, grounded, and in complete control. Number 4. Their lies were loud, but their actions screamed the truth. A liar's words may be loud, but their silence will always scream the truth. They thought they could talk their way into control, spinning stories, twisting facts, bending reality to fit their illusion. They crafted the perfect phrases, rehearsed their deception, convinced that if they spoke with enough confidence, you would believe them. But while they were busy running their mouths, you were watching, listening, not to what they said, but to what they didn't. See, words are easy to manipulate, but the body, the smallest shift in expression, the hesitation before a response, the way their hands fidgeted when they thought they had you fooled, that's where the truth lived. They didn't realize that every forced smile, every quick glance, every unnatural pause exposed them more than anything they ever said. They believed they had full control over the narrative, but you were never fooled by words. You read between the lines, and what you saw was undeniable. They thought they were the masters of perception, that their words were weapons, that they could dictate how you saw them. But you never needed their words to understand the truth. You watched their movements, picked up on the cracks they tried so hard to seal, and you saw straight through the act. Every attempt they made to control the conversation only revealed more of what they were trying to hide. And now, the realization is settling in, the fear creeping up their spine, the awareness that they never really had the upper hand because you were always watching. Now they're questioning every interaction, every moment they thought they had control. They wonder, how much did you see? How long have you known? And the answer? Since the beginning. What they thought was their strength, their ability to manipulate, to twist words, to craft an illusion, was actually their greatest weakness. Because the entire time they were performing, they had no idea that you weren't buying the show. You weren't reacting, you weren't engaging, you were observing. And now, as they sit with the weight of their own exposure, they feel it. The game was never in their hands. It was in their body language, their mistakes, their unconscious tells. And you caught them all. Number 5. You used silence as a weapon, and it dismantled their game. A lion doesn't waste its roar on sheep. Silence is not weakness. It's the ultimate checkmate. They came at you expecting a reaction, baiting you, poking at you, doing everything they could to pull you into their little game. But instead of taking the bait, you stood still. You let the silence speak for you. And that silence, it became the thing they feared the most. They thought their words had power, that their manipulation could shake you. They wanted to see you flinch, get angry, lose control. But when none of that happened, when they were met with nothing but calm, calculated stillness, the weight of it crushed them. because now they had to sit with their own thoughts, their own insecurities, their own paranoia. And that's where the unraveling began. See, silence is never empty. It forces the other person to fill the space. And fill it, they did. They created their own chaos, second-guessing every move, spiraling into their own mind games, trying to decipher what you knew and what you were planning. Every moment you didn't react, they panicked a little more. Every time they pushed and got nothing, they lost another ounce of confidence. They thought they were in control. But the truth? Control was never in their hands. It was in yours, the entire time. Without your participation, their little schemes collapsed. Their so-called power moves lost their weight. They needed your energy to feed their illusion of control, and you refused to give it. They thought they were inside your head, but your silence became the ghost that haunted theirs. Now, they sit there, exposed, realizing too late that they were never leading the game. You were. While they spent their time running in circles, you were standing still, watching, learning, and waiting. And now, they know. They feel the weight of your silence like a noose around their confidence. They look back at every moment they thought they had you, only to realize you were simply letting them dig their own grave. Let them feel it. Let them sit with it. Because the silence they once mocked is now the thing that keeps them awake at night. Number 6. Their so-called power moves were just desperate ego tricks. A fool's idea of power is forcing others to notice them. A real force needs no audience. They thought they were making calculated moves, playing some high-stakes game where they were always one step ahead. Every insult, every little manipulation, every attempt to throw you off, these weren't strategies. They were cries for attention, desperation wrapped in arrogance. They wanted you to react, to acknowledge their so-called power, to play along. But you never did. Because real power doesn't beg to be seen. They believed they were playing chess, but in reality, they were just shuffling pieces on a board that never mattered. Their power moves weren't acts of dominance. They were performances, flimsy acts meant to convince both you and themselves that they were in control. But you saw the cracks from the very beginning. Every move they made had the same pattern, a fragile ego trying to prove its strength. The subtle jabs, the fake confidence, the forced displays of superiority, it was all a mask, and a weak one at that. They weren't powerful, they were just afraid. Afraid that without their tricks, without their games, they were nothing. And now they're realizing the truth. You were never trapped in their game. You were watching it. They mistook your silence for weakness. They thought your refusal to engage meant they had control. But in reality, you were just letting them expose themselves, letting them run in circles, wearing themselves out with their own foolishness. The more they tried to prove their power, the more they revealed how little of it they actually had. And now? Now they feel it. That sinking feeling that they weren't the masterminds they thought they were. That everything they did was predictable, obvious, and beneath you. They look back at all their little power moves and realize it was never power at all. It was just ego screaming for validation. That's what stings the most. Not just that they lost, but that they were never really playing to begin with. You didn't just beat them, you let them destroy themselves. Number 7. They craved validation. You starved them of it. Nothing destroys the insecure more than being ignored by the one they seek to impress. They needed you, not for who you are, but for what you could give them. Validation. Every move they made, every insult, every little act of one-upmanship was a desperate attempt to extract a reaction from you. They wanted to feel powerful, to be acknowledged, to know they mattered in your eyes. But you gave them nothing. That's what destroyed them the most. Not anger, not retaliation. Silence. The kind that speaks louder than any words ever could. They thrived on attention, but when it came to you, they hit a brick wall. No approval, no praise, not even irritation. You refused to feed their ego, and without your energy to sustain them, they began to wither. They thought they had power over you, but what they never realized was their entire game depended on your participation. Without your response, their little victories felt hollow. The mind games they played, the manipulation they attempted, the power moves they pulled, it all fell flat when you didn't engage. At first, they were confused. They pushed harder, tried new tactics, threw more bait in hopes you would react. But nothing worked. They were used to controlling others with validation, forcing people into their game by making them crave approval. But you were different. You weren't playing. And then it hit them. Hard. Without your acknowledgement, they started feeling small. The power they thought they had. It was never real. It only existed as long as you allowed it. Now, as they look back, they see how much they relied on you to feel important. That sting they feel now. It's the weight of irrelevance. This is the true power of being chosen. When you understand that your validation is a currency, you control who receives it. And when you refuse to give it to those who seek it the most, they crumble under the weight of their own insecurity. Let them feel foolish. Let them sit in the emptiness they created for themselves. Because while they spent all their time chasing your approval, you were busy rising beyond them. Number 8. They thought they were unpredictable. You read them like a script. A snake that moves in circles believes it's unpredictable, but the hunter watching from above sees the pattern every time. They thought they had you second-guessing, scrambling to figure them out, lost in their so-called clever tactics. Every time they made a move, they assumed it would shock you, shake you, leave you guessing. But what they never realized was that you had already read them like a book with missing pages, predictable, repetitive, and easy to track. They thought they were the masterminds, the ones pulling the strings, making every situation play in their favor. But the truth? Their actions weren't the work of a genius. They were the habits of a desperate mind, stuck in a loop. You saw it. You watched it unfold, over and over, because they were nothing more than prisoners of their own patterns. Their attempts to manipulate, to control, to shift the balance in their favor. It was all so obvious to you. Not because they weren't trying hard enough, but because they never had an original thought in the first place. They were creatures of habit, driven by ego, insecurity, and a constant need to assert dominance. And that's why they were never a real threat. You knew exactly what they would do before they even considered doing it. Their games? The same tired tricks, played out time and time again. Their lies? So predictable you could almost recite them before they even spoke. While they saw themselves as unpredictable and elusive, you saw a pattern that never changed. And now they know. Now they realize they weren't outsmarting you. They were just walking in circles. The moment it dawns on them that you've known their every move all along, the illusion shatters. They aren't complex. They aren't ahead of the game. They were just pawns who never understood the board. They're feeling it now. The humiliation, the shame, the weight of realizing that the person they thought they were fooling was actually 2 steps ahead the entire time. They thought they were playing mind games with you, but in the end, they were only playing themselves. Number 9. Their drama was a trap, but you never took the bait. When you refused to react, you stripped them of their only weapon, your attention. They came at you with everything they had: manipulation, gaslighting, fake outbursts, desperate attempts to get inside your head. They twisted situations, pushed buttons, played mind games, all with one goal: to get a reaction out of you. Because the moment you reacted, they would feel in control. But you never gave them that satisfaction. You didn't argue. You didn't defend yourself. You didn't play their game. And that destroyed them. Drama thrives on attention. Chaos needs fuel. And when you refused to engage, you starved their tactics until they collapsed under their own weight. They thought they were being clever, but all they did was reveal their own desperation. Because the truth is, only weak people rely on chaos to feel powerful. Only insecure minds need to create confusion to feel in control. They thought you would chase after their approval, that you would fight to clear your name, that you would break under pressure. But instead, you stood still while they spiraled. And the more they tried to bait you, the more foolish they looked. You became the mirror that reflected back their own weakness. And now, reality has hit them hard. They realize you were never the one losing control. They were. They were so focused on pulling you into their web that they never saw themselves getting tangled in their own strings. Every trick they tried, every scheme they pulled, it all backfired the moment you refused to react. What they thought was a game of power turned into their own public humiliation. They believed they were manipulating the situation, but all they did was expose themselves. And now they're left wondering, why didn't it work? It didn't work because you never needed their validation. You never needed their approval, their acceptance, or their twisted version of reality. You knew the truth, and the truth stood on its own. Let them feel the weight of their failure. Let them sit in the silence they never expected. Because now they see it clearly. Without your energy, they are nothing. Number 10. They played shallow mind games. You operated on a deeper level. A deep mind terrifies the shallow, because no matter how hard they try, they will always be out of their depth. They thought they had you figured out. To them, you were just another person to manipulate, another pawn to move in their little game. They used their usual tricks, mind games, deception, shallow plays, thinking they could control you like they did everyone else. But what they never realized is that you weren't even playing the same game. While they skimmed the surface, thinking their quick moves were clever, you were already operating on an entirely different level, one they never even considered. They were so obsessed with trying to fool you that they never stopped to wonder just how much deeper your understanding ran. Now, as the truth sinks in, they see it clearly. They never stood a chance. Their strategies were basic, their schemes predictable, their arrogance laughable. They were playing checkers while you were mastering an infinite game. Every tactic they thought was clever was nothing more than a desperate attempt to mask their own insecurity. And now they see it for what it is. You weren't just avoiding their tricks, you were dissecting them. Every fake smile, every subtle insult, every attempt to control the narrative, you saw through it all before they even spoke. They thought they could box you into their small-minded understanding, but you were the storm they never saw coming, and the hardest pill for them to swallow, the realization that they weren't as smart as they thought. They built up this image of themselves as calculated, strategic, ahead of the curve, only to find out that their so-called mastery was nothing more than a collection of repetitive, shallow, and obvious moves. Now, standing in the wreckage of their failed attempts, they are humbled, exposed, and humiliated. Because when you place shallow minds next to true depth, the contrast is undeniable. And they finally understand. They were never dealing with someone on their level. Let them sit with that realization. Let them drown in their own foolishness. Because, at the end of the day, they never understood you. And now, it's too late for them to catch up. Number 11. Now they wonder just how much you knew all along. Nothing haunts a deceiver more than the fear of being truly seen. The moment it dawns on them that you've known everything all along, it hits like a punch they never saw coming. The confidence they once had, gone. The smug sense of control, crushed. Because now they're not just embarrassed, they're terrified. They thought they were clever, thought they had crafted the perfect mask, spinning stories, twisting narratives, moving in the shadows like puppeteers. But now they realize they were never hidden. Their tactics, their lies, their subtle manipulations, you saw through it all. And the worst part, you never even had to say a word. Now, the paranoia kicks in. They start replaying every conversation, every move, every scheme. What else did you see? How much did you know? When did you figure it out? The questions eat away at them. Because the truth isn't just that you knew, it's that you always knew. They thought they were pulling strings, controlling narratives, setting traps. But now they see the bigger picture. The whole time you were just watching, silent, patient, and completely aware. And that's what terrifies them the most. Because if you knew all along, that means every lie they told, every trick they played, every fake smile they threw your way, it was all worthless. This isn't just about their deception being exposed, it's about the aftermath, the paranoia that creeps in, the self-doubt that takes hold. They start second-guessing everything they've ever said, wondering where they slipped up, where their facade cracked. Their confidence has turned to fear. They're trapped in their own mind, drowning in the realization that the game was never in their hands. And here's the final blow. There's no way out. Because once someone realizes they've been completely seen, there's no way to undo it. No way to rewrite the past. They're left standing in the wreckage of their own lies, knowing that the power they thought they had. Number 12. While they overanalyzed everything, you moved with instinctive precision. The sharpest mind is not the one that calculates every move. It's the one that simply sees the truth and acts. They thought control came from strategy, from plotting every move, from obsessing over every possible outcome. They thought if they planned enough, schemed enough, overanalyzed enough, they could get ahead. But all that thinking only trapped them in their own confusion. Meanwhile, you didn't need to strategize every little step. You didn't need to waste energy on endless calculations. You moved with instinct, clarity, and purpose, always 2 steps ahead without even trying. That's what terrifies them. They spent all this time trying to manipulate, trying to twist reality in their favor, trying to force an outcome. But no matter how much they schemed, they couldn't shake you. They couldn't throw you off. Because your strength doesn't come from playing their game. It comes from seeing through it. You weren't tangled in their chaos. You stood outside of it, watching as they tripped over their own delusions. They thought they were playing mental chess, carefully placing their pieces, thinking 10 steps ahead. But what they never understood is that real mastery isn't about obsessing over the board. It's about knowing when the game itself doesn't even matter. You weren't caught up in their web. You weren't distracted by their noise. You simply moved with purpose, with clarity, with an unshakable sense of direction. And now, they're left staring at the wreckage of their own overthinking. Their so-called genius strategies collapsed under their own weight. Every carefully laid plan, exposed, every attempt to control you, pointless, because you were never under their control to begin with. You were always free. You were always ahead. Now they sit in silence, realizing just how foolish they were to believe they ever had the upper hand. They thought they were calculating your every move, but the truth is, they were just reacting to you the whole time. While they scrambled to keep up with their own confusion, you moved with effortless precision. Their mind games weren't sophisticated, their tricks weren't clever, their control was never real. Let them feel it. Let them sit with the weight of their failure. Because in the end, it wasn't their schemes that won. It was your clarity. And now they know. You were never just playing along. You were always ahead. And now, as the dust settles, the truth is undeniable. They were never in control. Every move they made, every trick they tried, only led them deeper into the illusion they created for themselves. Meanwhile, you stood firm, unshaken, always 2 steps ahead. Let them sit with the weight of their own foolishness. Let them wonder just how much you knew all along. If this resonated with you, hit that like button, subscribe our channel,